Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dissonant Dialogues. I am Emily, and I am not here with my co-host, so I cannot ask how Claire is doing. Because I had a little bit of extra time, and because our season 3 is like half the size of our past few seasons, I decided to throw in a bonus episode. I talked to Claire about it, and I am a huge reader, and so I decided to talk about something that I am very passionate about that I think is going to be a wonderful resource. This episode will be a wonderful resource for all musicians that I will get into. But today it is just going to be me talking to you. And today should be a pretty brisk, short episode just to give you some information that I think will help benefit you as a musician. This is our first solo episode on Dissonant Dialogues. I'm currently recording this on August 25th, 2025. I wanted to throw the solo episode in just because I had the extra time, but more so because I am an avid reader, even an author now. And I've read tons of literature over the past few years, studying a music education degree and a performance degree. I'm going to both show and then give a brief description and rate 10 out of 10 on 10 books total today. Every book that you will see today will be linked in the description below. These books are targeted towards musicians, just broadly musicians. Whether you are a conservatory student, if you're a string player, if you're a choir director, if you're a music ed major, if you just enjoy music as a hobby, if you're a theory and history nerd, kind of like me, at least one of these books are going to speak directly to you, and you might want to consider reading going forward in life. So let's get started. I'm going to go in order from smallest book to largest book, just for funsies. So today we're actually starting off with a book that I don't have. It's on my phone. Beyond Talent, Creating a Successful Career in Music by Angela Miles Beeching. We are starting very strong with a 9.5 out of 10. This book has all the things that we never get told to understand or learn. So I would say that this book is specifically for those that are planning on making music some part of their career, whether you are teaching private lessons on the side as a small business, or whether this is like private lessons full time. You are working in a school district full time. You are playing with an orchestra full time and also freelancing other gigs. If you are making money from your music in any way, this book talks all about the business sides of things, all the things that we don't learn about in conservatory because nobody knows why we don't, but we don't. This book has it all. And this book was never ever recommended to me. I should just say that. It was never recommended. It was never required in my own conservatory. I was very lucky to find it and I learned a lot from it. There are tons of resources in here. It talks about taxes, just maintaining a private studio, if that's your main income source, talks about social networking, which is a little bit, newer in today's world, how important it is to have a social media page and especially having a website, having yourself out there in some way to be able to have music as your primary source of income in whatever way that is. There's also a section that talks about how to talk to audience members after a performance respectfully, and then also how to talk to performers after a performance when you are the one in the audience seat. Because let's face it, I mean, a lot of times we're like, wow, you played really well. That was good. Good job. And we don't know exactly how to speak what we're thinking about their performance in a respectful and kind way that's going to impact them and vice versa. So it is a very interesting like business side of the music world I feel like all the secrets are in here. Like they don't want us to know this in conservatory, I swear to you, because they never ever talk about these kinds of things in conservatory. We just have to like figure it all out after. So why not get yourself ahead and learn these important things? I highly recommend that you read it while you're in conservatory, just like I did. Hey Diddle Diddle, The Corpse and the Fiddle by Fran Ritzer. I rate this book a 6 out of 10. This book is mostly just for those of you that love mysteries like thrillers, those kinds of books and movies that like you're reading and then like you get to like this point in the book and there's like the most major plot twist that like you could never ever predict or understand. A good movie is called The Vanished that does that. It makes you question literally everything. It's those kinds of like mysteries are so good. And it's so cool because this one is about musicians. So it's a cool way to like make something that maybe is all serious to you if music is your career, and then to just read something fun about it. Or if you're not in music as your career and you just love music and you're like, oh, this seems really cool and interesting. So it's not like a crazy horror. It's just mostly like a mystery about a legendary fiddle player who dies at a bluegrass festival. And while the case is being investigated, like another person passes away, somebody disappears, and it's just like following this entire case of these musicians from this festival. So it's like a fun mystery kind of book. And I read this years ago, and it's just the title is just funny. That's why I'm laughing. It is a mystery though. It's kind of like a serious book. Number three is The Shortest History of Music by Andrew Ford. I rate this book a 7 out of 10. I think for this book to be effective to you, it best targets those who are about to enter conservatory and wanting to start to prepare for those intense music history classes. Man, I feel like you either really struggle with music theory or you really struggle with music history. You love one and you hate the other. It's like that way. And music history classes, those can be really tough. You have so much to cover in music history. And so when you don't have experience like reading about anything in history, whether it's like a biography of a composer or something like this, it's really, really hard to be able to dive into those classes. So every history class is ran differently, but this book is just so broad and covers a lot of like generalized stuff that I think it's perfect to give you a solid foundation before being tossed into those aggressive history courses that like you just literally get like 5 billion pieces of information and then you're tested on it and you're like, oh my gosh. So I think this book is also good for those who aren't in music as a career. You know, you just enjoy learning about the history of various styles of music and instruments. You just love playing music. And you want to have a little bit more of a solid background when you're deciding interpretation and your own performances. Number four, The Inner Game of Golf by Timothy Gallwey. I rate this book a 9 out of 10. And this is because if you ever had those moments where like you're looking at a violinist and you're like, wow, I wish I had their vibrato. Like I want that vibrato. Or I like their ricochet is gorgeous. I want their ricochet or their spiccato is so crisp and clean. I just want exactly that. And you're thinking, I want their muscles, you know, the body that's able to do that. I want that physicality that they have that allows them to be great. But what you're actually wishing for is their brain. It's their mindset. Yes, being a musician, you know, it's being an athlete. We are using our muscles, but our abilities are often limited by mental interference when we go to perform on stage, if we perform in a lesson for our teachers, or if we perform for ourselves in the practice room. Notice how I said perform for each of those sentences. I didn't say practice on stage or practice in front of our teachers or practice in the practice room, because really every time that we pick up our instruments, we get nervous because we are performing. It's a reflection of ourselves, is what we feel, and our own ego gets in the way. It's always a performance. And I learned so much about reducing tension and stress, as well as how to improve my focus in this book. There is an inner game of music, and I have read that one too, but I just think that this initial book really hits differently. And if you're capable of reading through this and learning about what this guy does in golf, you can kind of like turn it to music in its own way that impacts you specifically in your own special way rather than reading the inner game of music. So I would recommend, if you're like, oh, but I want to read the inner game of music, read the inner game of golf first, then read the inner game of music. And I think that that's going to have the greatest impact for how you absorb this kind of information. Strings Attached by Joanne Littman and Melanie Kupczynski. 9.9 out of 10. This book is one of the best I've ever read. Whenever anybody asks me what my favorite book is, I have always said Strings Attached for years now. And I think it's a good one to help improve our hope for the classical music industry right now. There's a lot of abuse in this industry. We've talked a lot about this on the podcast and how to keep yourself safe. There's a lot of unsafe people that were around that hide really well. But this book, now when I think about it, really reminds me that there was once good and there can be good. We can be the good if we are very mindful and we continue to be human and not these like music machines. This book is a memoir by a woman in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Currently, I live in Chicago, BTW. So I just think it's really cool. I've actually seen her perform. I've never gotten to speak to her, Melanie, but it's really cool like that I've seen her in the orchestra because I've read this book and this book has changed my life. And the book talks about the impact that her teacher had on her becoming a successful violinist. You know, it talks about what her home life was like, how she achieved such high success, and what she did to even get there as a young child, as a teenager, as a young adult. And I think that this book hit me really hard is because when I was reading this book, I was in high school, and at that time, my high school private violin teacher, who was my second ever private violin teacher and meant a lot to me, was diagnosed with cancer, and he shortly then passed away. And every day I think about the impact that he had on my career, on my love for music, how he safely mentored me and intelligently mentored me to make me the best of myself. You know, when we're teaching students, we're not teaching them all the same path. We have to teach all the students their own specific special path. And I feel like I'm not just that most common path. This teacher came to me and was like, I see what you need, and was able to get me there that not a lot of other teachers were able to or willing to do for me. And so reading this book then about how this teacher has impacted so many people in so many ways and changed the classical music industry when I was having this own emotional moment with my own violin teacher was just so powerful. And I highly recommend just sitting down one day, like sit outside when it's just like warm or rainy or whatever, get yourself a cup of tea and just enjoy it. Just enjoy the story. It's one of those kinds of books. It's kind of like Hey Diddle Diddle, but like a little more serious, but like that kind of a book. Number 6, What About Me by Emily Zwijack. I rate this book a 10 out of 10. I might be biased because I'm the author, but this book by me talks about surviving sexual abuse in the classical music industry. It is a storyline, but also has a lot of resources and just is a resource in general kind of book for survivors. And I think it's just very educational to any age group in the industry because this stuff happens everywhere. Predators are everywhere and survivors are everywhere. Of course, this is a very sensitive subject, so I do think minors should be checking with the adults in their life if this book is a mentally safe book for them to be reading. But I do think that this book will help a lot of people in the classical music industry, and you should definitely have it because you never know when you're going to become a victim, when someone that you love is going to become a victim, and having this resource on you is something that will help you feel a little bit more in touch with humanity. From the Stage to the Studio by Cornelia Watkins and Laurie Scott. 10 out of 10. Is this my first 10 out of 10 that I did? I think, oh, my own book was a 10 out of 10, of course. But this is also a 10 out of 10. I'm going to be dramatic, but very serious when I say this. If you are going to be a private teacher, you have to read this book. Classroom educators, you too. This book is full of information that you will not get in conservatory to be a successful teacher. This is like information that you learn when you're like, oh, and you're like year 1, 2, 3, 4 of teaching and trying to figure it all out. And if you have this information, you might be able to like inhale and exhale oxygen a little bit more comfortably. So this book has teaching strategies and analogies, which is super, super, super cool. You know, it gives like ways to explain things that maybe you have not thought about before. You're talented as a musician, right? You can play all the really trickies. You can play the Tchaikovsky, the Shostakovich, the large orchestral repertoire. But how do you explain it? How do you teach it to people of all ages with different learning abilities, with a different cultural background, people who are just different than you in any other way? Not the way that you learned it. Can you explain something more than one way? Throwback to one of my professors that used to scream and point at me in the face and explain things the same way and talk in slow motion, thinking that saying the same thing over and over again was going to help me understand it better. Don't do that. That's not how you should be teaching people. To give you an idea of what's in here, though, I do want to read the table of contents because I think you're just going to be like, oh my God, this information exists somewhere. So the first part talks about musicianship, listening technique, practicing, and performing, how to teach aspects of all of those things to your students. Crazy, I know, right? The art of teaching, teaching principles, a method called sequencing, fostering student independence, right? That is the goal for students to be able to practice and perform on their own. Comprehensive teaching methods, creating your own teaching philosophy. Why are you teaching? What are you teaching? What's important to you when you teach? Establishing a teaching studio in the first place, right? How do you build a private lesson studio? We don't learn those things in conservatory. That explains how to do so. Teaching groups, ensembles, and classrooms, other teaching situations, not only one-on-one. I can guarantee if you're a private lesson teacher, you're probably also going to have group classes. And it's very different teaching one-on-one versus having a group of kids in front of you, whether they're a group of kids that all play the same instrument or a group of kids that's like a full orchestra. Daily considerations and challenges. There's a lot of challenges in this career, so it's important that we got these outlined in here to help save us from making the same mistakes. Strategies for Teaching Strings, Building a Successful String and Orchestra Program by Donald Hammond and Robert Gillespie. I rate this book a 9.2 out of 10. Yes, I'm very specific with my decimals as I'm reading these books. This book was a recommendation by my cooperating teachers when I was student teaching. There is so many important information in here. I highly recommend, specifically with this book, if you are primarily a band person or primarily a choir person, and you end up landing a gig teaching string orchestra at a school, that can be a little scary, and you don't know a lot about string players and how to take care of things. This book, read it through and you will have a good idea of what you need to know and do. It talks about instrument care with string instruments, designing a curriculum, working with parents, starting beginners, how to teach aural skills, how to teach advanced players, specific bowing techniques, all like détaché, spiccato, like literally every single bowing technique you can think about. They talk about how to teach it in here. Rehearsing larger groups, even teaching improv in schools, which I think was really, really cool that they include that in there because as string players, we don't get to do a whole lot of improv. So this book really just has it all. And, obviously is great for any orchestral teacher, but any teacher that is going to teach strings. The Choral Director's Guide to Sanity and Success by Randy Pagel and Linda Spevchik. So this book is choral oriented, but really for classroom educators, I think it is so important and really great for all directors to be comfortable running a band class, a choir class, and an orchestra class. For example, me, I know that if needed, I could hop in and quickly run a band, like a jazz band rehearsal. I know that if a choir was rehearsing and a teacher needed me to step in, I could do warm-ups with them. I feel comfortable enough doing that, even though I know that strings are my primary. And I think that that's so important to have that kind of confidence in music in so many different types of music and instrumentations. This book also talks about working with girls and boys' voices as a man and a woman. Like it literally says, as a male teacher, how to teach the young female voice. As a male teacher, how to teach the young male voice and vice versa. So I think it's just really important of like, because we're using our bodies to either sing or make music, and especially singing. I think it's very important to know what you're talking about when your body might not be the exact same as the people that you are teaching. And that goes for everything, not just choir, but strings and band as well. So this book is like strategies for teaching strings, but it's more choral specific. And I think that a lot of choir people would benefit from this, but I also read it and I benefit a lot from it, even though I'm primarily a strings teacher. Last but not least, the big one, Tonal Harmony by Stefan Kaska and Dorothy Payne and Byron Ullman.
We have two books here, one that was Claire's and one that was mine. They are books that guided us in the time in which we first met and were very important in our lives. They are based on the practices of one man, largely, who lived a long time ago. It is, of course, the Kaska-Payne 7th edition music theory textbook.
Used to only be Stefan Kaska and Dorothy Payne, but now I think there's actually a 9th edition. I thought I had the most up-to-date one. I have the 8th edition. There's tons of editions. Okay. I rate this book a 7 out of 10. I based a lot of my own music theory curriculum off of this book, and it covers mostly like tonal theory, and then it will like squeeze in a couple chapters at the end of post-tonal theory. And I just wish that there was a little bit more of post-tonal theory at the end. I think that that's important to cover and to dive into it and cover more. I think a lot of people just like brush past post-tonal theory, be like, nah, tonal is the most important. And I think that they're both important in understanding how our theories of music have adjusted over time in our world. But overall, this book is just really well organized. I base my own music theory curriculum off of this book. So if you're planning on learning more about written skills in theory, like analyzing chords, like those kinds of things, this book is really, really great for that. Reading rhythms, and it goes like to really advanced stuff too. I do wish that it talked about aural skills too, because those go together. Written skills and aural skills. When I teach my music theory classes, I tie it very much to the student. So it depends on like where the student is like in their life and in their musical journey. But when I'm starting somebody out, I don't just teach written skills. I teach written skills, aural skills, and singing skills, because I think all three of those go together. And I just wish that this book had that all in here. That would be really, really amazing. But this is a great written theory skills book. Very expensive, highly recommend it. I used to teach out of the 4th edition, and I'll tell you right now, there's not a whole lot different in the 8th edition. There's a few like corrections and stuff. So if you're looking to buy a cheaper copy, go for like the 4th version and you'll get the material just fine. All right, thank you so much for listening to our first solo episode of the podcast. Maybe Claire will do a solo episode in the future. I don't know, just throwing ideas out there. If you have any feedback, you can reach us at dissonantdialogues@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 872-216-9032 with feedback. Also, if you'd like to be a guest or if you have any topic ideas for us or questions, again, we are thinking about topic ideas that we might just throw in like this one for season 3, maybe even a season 4. I don't know. We haven't announced that yet, but please give us any ideas or guests or questions. Give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok. We're Dissonant Dialogues on both of those platforms. And we look forward to seeing you next time. I'll be Claire at the end. Wait, what does Claire always say? Bye, take care of yourselves. Yeah, I did it. Oh my gosh, I'm Claire.
Look at me!
I know, we seem to be inside
I'm
each other.
old!
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
Okay, that's enough.
Wait, can I change that? There has to be a way. I could just be Claire. That'll really confuse everybody. I can already see this going into the bloopers. That's perfect. Yeah, I'll just be myself. Okay. I don't want to, but I'll be myself. Never look this fancy. So here's the intro. I'm going to make this as efficient for you to edit as possible, Claire. Oh my god, there's so many emails. Okay. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb. I couldn't help but look. I started to panic and think I wasn't recording. No, I am recording. Okay. Hey, hard not having Claire to bounce things off, which is why I based my own music. I almost got knocked out by my own book. This is funny. I thought it would be awkward to do it. I know Claire's like watching this in the future, so I'm talking to Claire right now. Bye, Claire.